The Florida high school shooting has seemed to shift the gun control debate. Before Parkland survivors started pushing for change, the debate had stagnated around stale talking points,
our thoughts and prayers are certainly with
contained outrage,
It doesn't have to be like this.
and Republicans' near-unanimous refusal to address guns in the wake of a mass shooting.
I think it's premature.
But now, the sustained effort to change the status quo is pushing normally reticent politicians closer to action.
We must get this done.
And groups on both sides are rushing to set the goalposts on what is and isn't up for discussion.
Senselessly, children are dying.
1. Survivors, victims' families, and gun control advocates are forming a powerful voice in the gun debate. They want restrictions on the weapons themselves.
We want to regulate semi-automatic weapons.
There is no place in our society for large-capacity magazines.
There is no place for guns in schools.
As well as restrictions on who can own them.
You should have background checks. There should be a waiting period.
If he's not old enough to buy a drink, to go and buy a beer, he should not be able to buy a gun.
They also want more and better mental health actions.
We need to step it up with the mental health checks.
This is more about funding for mental health services to help these individuals that are at risk.
And for politicians to stop taking money from the gun lobby.
Can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future?
And that just barely scratches the surface. There are dozens of other ideas for gun control out there. 2. Many Democrats' views align with those of gun control advocates.
Weapons of war have no place in our communities.
An AR-15 is not for hunting. That's for killing.
Some have proposed banning people on the no-fly list from owning firearms and strongly support gun-free zones.
I agree. We need all the information that we can get.
But there are some more conservative, red state Democrats who have prevented Democratic consensus on gun control in the past, especially on issues like the assault weapons ban.
I do not support an assault weapon ban.
3. Gun rights groups, like the National Rifle Association, are offering concessions, at least publicly, that they haven't before.
The failure of family, the failure of America's mental health system.
I don't believe that this insane monster should have ever been able to obtain a firearm. Ever.
But they've refrained from commenting on a bump stock ban, and they're holding the line on opposing gun-free zones, ownership restrictions, and any sort of weapons ban.
The government has proven that they cannot keep you safe. And yet, some people want all of us to disarm.
Instead, they're advocating for more armed security at schools.
To stop a bad guy with a gun, it takes a good guy with a gun.
4. Republican politicians are starting to splinter from their traditionally monolithic opposition to gun legislation.
If a court actually says, you have mental health issues, then that should be something that shows up in every state.
Because I traditionally have not supported looking at magazine clip size. And after this and some of the details I've learned about it, I'm reconsidering that position.
I call it the Violent Threat Restraining Order. I want to make it virtually impossible for anyone who has mental issues to use a gun.
But they still largely oppose any sort of assault weapons ban or gun ownership restrictions.
It's why it failed in '94. It's why they're getting around it now in California. It's how they get around it in New York.
5. And President Trump has mentioned an array of proposals.
We're going to do strong background checks.
People that are they have mental problems, we cannot allow them to have guns.
We have to look at the internet.
The teacher would have shot the hell out of him before he knew what happened.
Getting the age up to 21 instead of 18. By the way, bump stocks, we're writing that out. I'm writing that out myself. I don't care if Congress does it.
Schools have to have some form of protection.
So we're going to be talking seriously about opening mental health institutions again.
All of that departs from his previous reactions to mass shootings and from some NRA positions. But so far, nothing concrete has materialized.